I was just 17 when I first discovered that my spine was slowly collapsing on itself. It began as a faint, nagging ache in my lower back, something I chalked up to the long shifts of my part-time job. But as weeks slipped into months, that mild discomfort turned into searing, relentless pain. Sitting for more than 10 minutes became impossible without tears welling up in my eyes. Some nights, I woke up screaming. After countless doctor visits, endless tests, and an excruciating MRI, I finally got a diagnosis: a rare spinal disorder. The specialist didn't sugarcoat it. If I didn't have surgery within 6 months, I could face irreversible nerve damage, maybe even lose the ability to walk. I'll never forget the expression on my mom's face when the doctor broke the news. Her eyes went blank, as if she'd checked out. My dad just rubbed his chin and stayed quiet. I had just turned 18. One semester left before graduation. I wasn't expecting them to fix everything, but I thought they'd at least comfort me, hold my hand, promise to find a way. Instead, they nodded quietly and led me out. Not a single word about how we'd pay for the operation. I knew we weren't wealthy, but we always managed. So when I offered to take more shifts, start a fundraiser, do anything, I expected support. Instead, they told me to focus on school, said they'd take care of it, and I believed them. 2 months passed. Then I noticed something strange. My dad had stopped driving our old, dented Corolla. Around the same time, my younger brother Tyler, who had just turned 16, pulled into the driveway with a brand-new Honda Civic. Sleek gray, tinted windows, leather seats, even a spoiler. It looked like something out of a car commercial. At first, I laughed. I thought it was a rental, but he drove it every day. Then one night, I overheard them in the kitchen, celebrating. My mom was giggling, telling my dad, "We did good. He's going to be the talk of the school." That night, once they were asleep, I got up and walked to the hallway closet. Inside was a small metal lockbox where they had been storing the money for my surgery. They had told me that was the plan. I had added my own savings from work to it, watching it grow. I checked every week. It should have held close to $11,000. There was $42. I sank to the floor right there in the dark, the box open in my lap, hands trembling. My chest tightened. My legs gave out. I couldn't scream, couldn't speak. I just sat in silence as a pain in my spine pulsed through me like a warning bell. The next morning, I confronted them. My mom looked annoyed, like I was being dramatic. "You'll be fine," she said casually. "We'll work something out. But your brother needed that car. You only turned 16 once." My father didn't even meet my eyes. Tyler just smirked. "You'll make it," he muttered. "You always do." I didn't cry, didn't shout. I just stared at them for a moment, turned, and locked myself in my room. For 3 days, I barely left, just long enough to grab some food. In that time, I came up with a plan. Quiet, steady, painful. I applied for every medical grant I could find, emailed surgeons, reached out to nonprofits, and shared my story online. Eventually, I posted in a support group, anonymously. A woman responded. She had faced the same condition years earlier. She gave me links, names, and, more importantly, hope. She introduced me to a foundation that helped young adults like me, those without financial or emotional support. In just a few weeks, they found a surgeon in another state willing to do the procedure at a drastically reduced cost. All I had to do was get there. I had $42, but I also had something stronger, rage, and focus. My parents had made their choice, and it wasn't me. They traded my chance at walking again for my brother's social status. That wasn't love. That wasn't what family was supposed to be. So I packed a single bag and sold everything I owned that could bring in even a little money. My phone, my headphones, even my old, half-broken laptop. It still wasn't enough, but when I reached out to the support group again, they stepped in, total strangers, people who had never seen my face, contributed more to my future than the people who raised me. On the morning I turned 18, I left behind a short note. I didn't pour out my heart, just wrote that I was going to have a surgery, and maybe, someday, they'd understand what they'd done. I didn't want to carry hate with me, but I also didn't know if I'd ever speak to them again. I got on a bus bound for Denver. The ride was 10 hours of pure agony. Every pothole sent shocks of pain climbing up my spine. But with each passing mile, I felt something like freedom. I thought the worst was behind me. I was wrong. The bus ride felt never-ending. I gritted my teeth in silence as my body screamed. A young woman sitting beside me, maybe mid-20s, noticed. She offered me half of her sandwich and asked why I kept flinching. I didn't have the strength to explain. Just a bad back, I told her. She studied me for a second and said, "You look like you've been through hell." I gave a weak smile. She had no idea. When we finally arrived in Denver, I spotted a woman holding a cardboard sign with my name scrawled in thick black marker. She introduced herself as Melanie, a retired nurse with kind eyes and a firm, no-nonsense presence. The moment she noticed my limp, she took my bag without asking and gently guided me to her car. That night, she gave me her guest room, tucked me into bed, and promised me things were going to be okay. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt safe. My surgery was scheduled for the following week. Until then, Melanie handled everything. My meals, my medication, even helping me bathe when standing became too difficult. She never pried, but one night, I told her everything. I opened the floodgates, the stolen surgery money, the new car, the betrayal that cut deeper than the physical pain. Her face darkened with every word. When I finished, she wrapped her arms around me so tightly I almost couldn't breathe. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "some people are born into their families. Others have to go out and find theirs." The operation was intense. I woke up in a fog, tubes in my arms, my throat dry, my whole body aching. But the pain was different now. It didn't feel like I was breaking anymore. It felt like I was healing. The surgeon told me the procedure had gone well, but the road to recovery would be long. Still, for the first time in years, I felt like I was moving forward instead of falling apart. Then, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived at Melanie's house. Handwritten, smudged, from Tyler, not from my parents. Just him. I stared at the envelope for hours before finally opening it. It wasn't quite an apology, more like guilt bleeding through cracks in his pride. He said he didn't realize how serious my condition had been. Thought I was just being overdramatic. Said he felt sick every time he drove that car, remembering how I limped through the house while he showed off to his friends. He told me he sold the car, that he wanted to send me the money, that he hoped to visit if I was open to it. I didn't know what to think. I left the letter untouched for a week. But every night, I found myself reading it again, trying to figure out if he meant any of it, or if it was just another manipulation. Then Melanie said something that stuck.
"You don't forgive people for them," she told me softly. "You do it so you don't rot from the inside. You decide what forgiveness looks like. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes, it just means releasing yourself from the pain." So, I called Tyler. The moment he heard my voice, he broke down crying. That caught me off guard. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen him shed a tear. He confessed that our parents hadn't looked for me, hadn't reached out. They acted like I'd just run away to teach them a lesson. According to him, our mother felt guilty but was too stubborn to admit it. And Dad, predictably silent. Tyler seemed like the only one who genuinely missed me. But I wasn't ready to let him back in fully. I told him I got his letter, that I was grateful for his words and the offer. But I didn't want the money. What I needed was space, peace, the freedom to move forward without their betrayal looming over everything I did. The next 6 months tested every ounce of strength I had left. Physical therapy was brutal. I had to teach my body how to function again, standing, walking, even just sitting without flinching. Some days, I resented my own body. Other days, I silently thanked it for not giving up on me. Through it all, Melanie stood by me. The foundation that helped me get surgery also supported me in taking online college courses. I even landed a remote tutoring job, helping kids with math and science. Slowly, I was carving out a future, one that had nothing to do with my past. One afternoon, Melanie surprised me with a cake. It wasn't even close to my birthday. "It's your rebirth day," she said with a grin. "The day you chose yourself." I laughed, then cried. No one had ever celebrated me like that before, just for surviving, for trying again. Then, A few weeks later, life threw me another unexpected curve. I received a phone call from a lawyer. He told me that my grandmother, my dad's estranged mother, a woman I barely remembered meeting twice, had passed away. In her will, she left behind a small cabin in Montana. Alongside the deed was a handwritten note. To the grandchild who still has a heart, make this your home. Apparently, she'd been following my story from afar. She hadn't spoken to my father in years, but when my post circulated online, it reached her. She told her lawyer I deserved something better than what I'd been given. The cabin wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. A place to start over. A gift from someone who saw me, even if from a distance. Melanie helped me pack. She hugged me tight at the bus station and promised to visit soon. I arrived in Montana in the heart of autumn. The trees were a blazing gold, the breeze sharp with the scent of pine. The world was quiet, calm. I stepped onto the porch, inhaled deeply, and felt something shift inside me. My back still ached some days, but I stood tall. For the first time in my life, I felt whole. I haven't spoken to my parents since. Maybe one day I will. Maybe not. Some wounds mend. Others simply scar over. But I've stopped waiting for them to change. I've stopped hoping for an apology that will never come. Because I've built something better, a life surrounded by people who chose me. Not out of duty. Not out of guilt. Out of love. And that, I've come to realize, is what real family means.